I have a DC chess league game against David Simon here. I played him when he was a lot younger. He was like, I don't know, 14, 15. And he was, I think, maybe 1800, 2000. So now he just hit 2200. So he had a really close game. All right. So I played Scandinavian. I was thinking, okay, I haven't been training my openings. This is the thing where I reached 2200 just playing exclusively Scandinavian. So I figure, why not? With the knight f6 line, knight f3, knight takes d5. And they really shouldn't play c4. It's just not a good move. If they're going to try to actually hold on to the pawn, you can even play c5, but the main line c6, pawn takes, knight takes. So for example, they go knight f3, they want to play d4. They're just not going to be able to play d4. I think the computer already says black's a little better in this position, despite being down a pawn. Yeah, the computer already gives like minus half a pawn for black. It's just such a bad position. And yeah, you could shove the pawn here. You could even just play naturally like bishop c5. It's just such a comfortable position, right? But this is the best line apparently. Take, you have this, take, take, take. Okay, threatening a fork, and just massive lead in development. Yeah, you got to be happy with black's position here, right? And the computer, again, it's already saying the black has more than enough compensation. So the thing that's really nice about the knight f6 line. There are a couple lines that are really cool like that. But of course, white should just play normally, and then you have kind of more like a Slav sort of thing. But it's interesting because you're making white play a d4 opening, even though they started with e4, and that's why I like the Scandinavian, because you're smashing at the center. Some people say it's like an improved Caro-Kann, but the thing is, in certain transpositions, but you are giving up. You aren't getting any pawn centers. Like, yeah, I'm getting rid of his e pawn, but they're going to have a d pawn. Yeah. So anyway, we trade here. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, also this is a bad move. E5 is bad. It's like a bad version of it. In general, the advanced French immediately isn't good, but they're just not getting it. It's kind of like a Caro-Kann. You're not quite getting a French sometimes. They're just not getting a French here. And another thing I like to do is to shove my H pawn. I think they have like F4. It's looking at some nice stuff. I like to like get my H pawn running and then grab the light squares. And yeah, you can get like a knight on f5, or if they go knight f3, you can pin them and like provoke h3 and then squeeze them. It's just really good for black. See, the computer is already favoring black here too. So yeah, so basically they should play with d4 is the main move. It'll be d4, knight takes, c4. It's kind of like Alekhine defense where you get chased around. And then you play g6 and you go out, but then you put a lot of pressure on this pawn. You could punch, then you just find a way to punch at it with c5 or e5, like knight here, you get e5 sometimes. And then you should be okay. Let me show you something real cool also. So one of the ways in which black could be doing really well is if they just play the natural knight c3, and then you go with this pawn stack. That's why I really like this stuff, because there's some cool little, like I studied this once I decided to finally use the computer, because I was trying to become NM without using the computer. Then I used it, and I looked, and it gave me a bunch of good lines too. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep using this. So like takes, again, the pawn sack is just really bad. Say they don't want to move the king. Okay, tempo on the pawn, tempo on the other pawn. And okay, you get the idea, right? And again, computer prefers black, just massive, massive position, right? Just five pieces out to like one. So yeah, it's bad. So it's fun if you play around with this. And they will often give you options like that. Now the way he's playing is kind of a quieter option. Actually, okay, I was thinking of this line where they go bishop. It would be knight f6, bishop c4, takes. I was thinking of this, something like this. It would be like knight c3, knight b6, and then you could play c5 and try to win the bishop, and then you make them go d3. And this is obviously super comfortable for black as well. As actually, let me show you something cool. Bishop here, queen f3. So you let them fork you here, right? Well, you guard. Then you let them try to, quote, sack on f7, because they're going to get to play g4. But it doesn't matter. There's a lot of really, really rich lines here. You just go e6. Like, who cares? Yeah, your king's a little bit in the middle, but look at how good your pawn structure is. They don't have anything if you think about it. I don't know. What if they want to check you here? Let's see. What's the best reaction? You ignore them. We just got a g8 probably and shore things up. Yeah, and you just kick them out. It doesn't matter. But look at how good black's pawn structure. Okay, you have three out, they have three out. You're quasi-castled. You're going to be able to come out. Yeah, and he's very uncomfortable. Okay, and if they go queenside, you could kind of feel like, okay, I have like the pawn and the knights over here. So I wouldn't feel super comfortable going queenside for white either. And black will shore things up here. So it just shows you some really interesting stuff. So the thing is, I kind of mixed it up because I was thinking of the same thing. It's fine, but then I'm like, wait, if I go c5, which is fine, but if I do that now, I'm like, oh, well, he has 95, and then I don't get to play bishop out, and I have to play e6 now. Like, I don't love that. So I figured, okay, fine. It's a little bit of a different move order, but I'm going to play bishop f5, then e6, and maybe I transpose to something similar. However, he's going to get to play d4. Because again, I want to play c5 and make him go d3, so he's more passive, but it's okay. So he does come in, but see the difference? Now I'm pretty happy. It's like in London, we get your bishop out. They call this the saw setup. If you guys ever heard of the saw setup, it comes out of a Slav where you have the d pawn traded. Usually it's d for c, actually. It could be either one. And you have the pawns like this, and you have the grip on d5. That's called the saw, I guess, like teeth of a saw here. So I have that basically. And again, that's where the Scandinavian could become like a Caro-Kann. So the idea is to get there in a different move order. Actually, could have gone queen here, but he brings his queen out. Like, okay, let's have a slugfest now. But the cool thing about this move, it's kind of computerish, but the thing is, you don't allow him to play d4 if you realize the strength of bringing your queen in. But whatever, he's like, trade queens, nothing super exciting, but black's doing pretty well. Good lead and development. Anyway, I went this way. So, okay, let's bring our queens out. Why not? Let's have fun. Okay, now I got 2 on the knight, and he ignores. So I'm ignoring the b pawn. He's ignoring this pawn. But I was like, should I really go after this? This was actually a really important decision because that take. So it looks like you can actually, it looks like you could try to win the pawn, right? Because the thing is, if you go take, oops, I did that, but if you take here, like, I don't think this works. It gets murky because it's like rook e1. But you don't really get anything out of this. You almost trap the queen, but you could pin it, right? So that got interesting. And I was looking at, I'm like, I didn't want to spend too much time. I just played intuitive, and I'm like, do I really want to go for that? I have to give up this strong bishop. Yeah, I don't like the knight. I can always challenge the knight. But then I still have to worry about b7. It's like, I don't need that. So I actually took it, but not for the purpose of winning the pawn, for the purpose of removing the knight and then being able to go here. And I figured it's much stronger to be like this than to get greedy for a pawn. And by the way, I don't care about this pawn, but he actually can't even take the pawn. Do you guys see why? What would happen immediately if he were to take b7? Pretty straightforward. What do you guys see? Queen takes b7. Black wins with what? Let's say he were to do it. Oh, well, there you have the arrow showing him.
Bishop e4.
Well, actually, you trap the queen from a distance, and you're going to mate him. So it doesn't matter. It's like
Yeah.
it could be a trap or it could be a fork. Oh no, it's not.
Well, I
Actually,
was
no, he could take c7 now, but who cares? He can very we'll be very happy.
well. He could check you from c
No, he can't even do
c8.
that. Yeah, he can as a spite check. Then he because the knight. No, it's crazy.
Oh, the
Yeah,
knight.
especially
Sorry, I
previously
missed the
when this
knight.
was guarded. There's always this bishop e4 idea, and the queen's just awkward in there. So you don't really have to worry about losing the rook either with the knight unless you play a4, a5. So anyway, that's taboo, as we say. This was quasi taboo to take e5. That was completely taboo. But I think this was very important, though. I studied the position for Bennett. You know what? Let's go with this. Let's get rid of the knight. Let's go here. Now my game is very clear, right? I'm going to put pressure on. I might win this pawn instead on c2. I have pressure on g2. I have bishop b4 ideas. I have knight c6 coming, which will then cover the queens, not have to worry about b7. It's going to hit e5. Now, if he wants to guard it, he has to play bishop f4, which leads to a miserable bishop. And I actually had a sparring game with my student recently. I was playing with my student Chris, and I did the same thing. So I was thinking, I had that fresh in my memory. And he's good. He recently got like a 2300. He beat like a 2300 on Lichess. Like he's really good at blitz. He's a good player. So he gave me a hard time. I was like, well, I did this to him, so it's fresh in my memory. I'm like, okay, let's do it to this guy too. But just because I had already done that analysis of the same structure recently, it was fresh, right? Now he didn't have to go bishop f4 apparently, but you can see the eval just going way down. Let me get rid of best move errors though. Yeah, you can see the eval just going way down, but it's a natural looking move, right? Bishop f4. But this is what I want strategically, right? So I have 4 out. He has 4 pieces out. He's castled. I'm not yet. But this pawn on e5, like he said after the game, he just really didn't like that pawn on e5. It's not helpful for him at all, which is kind of ironic because it's like, well, look, I gained space. Well, gaining space with your pawn is only useful to the extent that it can help your pieces, right? So this is more like the hypermodern idea. It's not quite a hypermodern opening, but like the hypermodern idea of not needing pawn control over the center, but piece control. Piece. Now you might use the pawns to smash. Also, you let them take over the center, like an Austrian attack or whatever, where they're like this against the perk, right? And you smash at it with like E5 or something. But in this case, well, he voluntarily pushed to E5, right? But yeah, the pawn, it gives him quote space because he's in my territory, gives him space on the E file, for example, and keeps my knight out of F6 if it were to try to go to F6. So it's like in the French where it has its benefits, but here it has far more cons than pros. And I'm just like, okay, let's just count. Okay, computer's gonna say dubious, whatever. Oh, because it wanted me to take the pawn. And again, I was like, you know what? I'm not in a rush. Okay, think about it. It's like how Nimzovich said the threat is greater than the execution. Well, in this case, I guess pressure. Because I'm not going to win this pawn. That's pressure. This is kind of a threat, but it's also just pressure. So I induced him to play rook c1, which apparently is the best move actually. But if he has to play rook c1, it can't be too happy for him, right? So I got to be like happy with my opening outcome, right? So equal over plus. I think it's fair to say black has a slight advantage coming out of the opening, right? So he has a bishop here, which is doing nothing. So one of his bishops is blocked by his own pawn. One is blocked by my pawn, but not in a way in which he could target my pawn. So again, so it's like there's this stuff like this kind of I guess footnotes or like reading between the lines. Doesn't look like much has happened, but this was very important, right? The fact that I took his knight, I resisted the temptation to take his pawn. I went here. Then I just rapidly finished my development, and I figured, there's no need to castle queenside. That's it's interesting. It's kind of risky though. I don't need to take a risk if I already think I'm doing better by castling. I just want something to work with. I already have plenty to work with by going kingside. I'm safe. And I also thought about the prospects. I'm like, well, look, he could shove his pawns and attack me. What can I really do? I shove the H pawn. He can easily block me. Even though, again, here he plays whatever. He can just let me come in. He can go G3 or something. But there's not much of an initiative to be had here. It's not like an immediate G5, H5 that's going to take a while to orchestrate. So I've already committed my queen here. I have pressure on C2, pressure on G2. Knight could come into D4 later. That's one of the benefits of queenside, right? Because I cover B7. But I'm not going to do it just so I could play knight D4. Funny enough, I actually went rook B8 because we both played patient moves. Yeah. So it still gives me a slight edge here. I mean, it's just very comfortable for black again. So I think a slight edge is fair from a human perspective. So he goes H3, I go H6. Why not? Also, I wanted to be able to not trade queens. I want to lose for my king, keep his piece up, but if he tries to trade, I'm not going to trade with him. Keep pressure. Okay, then I come in. Oh, not yet. Could have come in immediately. Yeah, so there are lines where I could take C2. I'm like, I just played it. This is just a patient game. It's not glamour. The end was the only glamorous part. But right now, it's just a really patient, quiet game, right? Then I come in. Well, it's a little louder, but he actually is able to trade down now. Okay, I go here. Now, he has to keep in mind, too, that I want to play C4. So he has to be very careful. I can't play C4 without dropping my knight. So, for example, he trades the knight. Now the queen has to babysit C4. The moment she goes away, I win his bishop. So it's kind of like the line I talked about earlier, where you go C5, they go D3. So I still have this idea of trapping the bishop. Well, he's probably going to shove his A pawn to deal with my knight. Okay, so I just come up a little bit. Now it says it's closer to even. I still feel good about my position because it wanted me to exploit things here. Well, I'll show you the line. Where was it? It wanted me to go, I think it was earlier. Was it here? Yeah, knight in. Well, I'd give him oh, my mouse is messed up. What's it saying? Okay, oh, that's interesting. I didn't look at this line. Threatening to win the bishop. And bishop takes, wait, what about C4? How about that? Is he gonna get it back or something? Oh, he has bishop A4. Not that great. It's good, but could be better. So anyway, it's like you don't need that. Just take on C2, takes. Now we're threatening, I guess, rook B8 to get to B2. So I don't think he's gonna play rook B1. But if he does, I think black's pretty happy. Pieces are swarming, beautiful line on D4. And again, just all you need to know here is his bishop. His bishop. Okay, look, let's say, well, the C4 knight's better than the C3 knight. Clearly, the D4 knight's better than the G3 bishop. And the queen's invaded. And who cares about, okay, we got his pawn, he got our pawn. But see, it's not about the pawn, it's about the placement. So obviously, this is just domination, overwhelming, right? Yeah, so I could have done that too. But so I end up, yeah, so I just have some pressure on him. A really nice knight on D4. Again, we could just compare it. Okay, actually, the F5 bishop's better than the B3 bishop. Definitely, right? It's an attacker, that's a defender. These ones kind of cancel out. maybe you could say, okay, maybe his knight's slightly better, but it's not doing anything. At least mine prepares to push c4 in some cases. And definitely d4 is happier than g3. So actually, we trades them off. See, now we're basically comparing. This is the apples to apples kind of the f5 to b3, and then now we have this. So and we just have to improve the knight, and it will, right? So that's really the analysis here. Is about knights against bishops, and that's going to be the thing that wins the game. So that's the thing. Like you can win games like that, right? Actually, the thing that I realized though that had me a little bit concerned, I'm like, wait, I kind of wasn't sure what to do for a moment. I played c5. I've given him rook d6. That's why I went queen g5. Well, he can't go rook d6. He loses his rook on c1. Also, if we want to, I could make some trades and I could have the queen covering d8. So he goes a4, and then I found, okay, now we're both getting low on time. We both, I don't know, 5 minutes or something with 30-second increments. Not too bad, but we're under 10 minutes. I forget exactly what it was. So c4. Now, I liked this line because this loses. If he goes a5, I take, he takes, and then I take. And he doesn't have time to take again. I'm threatening his rook. But the cool thing is now that my queen's hitting c1, if he wants to start trading, well, that's hanging now. And he's going to have to give up the exchange, basically. That's fine. And then easy, yeah, completely winning. And there's not even compensation here. Like it's like, oh, you don't have a really good bishop, and it's an awful bishop too. So it's easy win with exchange up. So he does this. Now we see the knights. This is literally the knight's journey. That's a little bit foreshadowing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, I'm not gonna show the whole thing, but yeah, it has like 11 moves. It was pretty. So he became the hero. He's not doing much, but by taking a4, he's hitting b2. He's able to wrap around. Funny enough, I could. This is a total computer line. I didn't even think about that because you draw. It's just really random. It's interesting when you study the computer just to know what's possible. So he tries to go after it, right? You drop your knight on d3. You fork these two, which you usually don't want to do. But the thing is, it's because the bishop's so bad, right? Well, it's rook against two bishops, bad bishop. Even this one's bad. So we have 6. So, but the thing is, the thing that wins is that you have enough time to start shoving the pawns. But it's really hard to assess that. I mean, I didn't even think about hanging my knight on d3. But hey, next time, after the computer analysis, maybe you start looking at things like that. Oh, that's not what I did. Okay, so I'm like, you know what? Like a lot of this game is just kind of kept it simple. It's like when you study how Karpov wins, kind of just played well enough, not perfectly. I'm like, look, I don't want to have this perennial issue continue of getting into extreme time pressure. Like, I don't need to do that. Let's just go here. And even here, he starts trading. Even here, it's like, yeah, I could take his bishop and mess up his pawns. But let's just keep it simple. Look, I'm sticking with my imbalance, right? I want to keep that imbalance. This is actually the thing that won right away for me, induced the error. So again, can safely say that black has at least a slight advantage, if not kind of decisive. But you have work to do, right? There's definitely work to do, but everything is just more comfortable. Yeah, really the bishop on b3 just never got to do anything. Bishop on g3 again. That's really the story of the game. And then he immediately loses. See the eval? Why? Okay, so I'll pause it here. This is just the fun part, but this is the fruit of your labor, right? For getting the better knight, getting the pawn structure that's conducive to a superior minor piece. And I like the fact that it's his and mine combined. And of course, you fix it. If it weren't fixed, you'd make sure to fix it in place against. Otherwise, if hypothetically, if he had a pawn here, he would shove it at you and sack it, maybe, especially if it doubled your pawns. So you have to make sure they're fixed like this. Then you get the superior minor piece, and you have the win. But so it's like, sure, you can study tactics and do that, but the positional understanding is like knowing that, again, the part that I was happy about was, again, that decision to take and then not to take back, but to just go queen g6. And that's the thing that led to the imbalance, better pawn structure, better minor piece, and led to this position. Okay, so I'm going to pause it there. You guys think about what the combo is. Okay, so Carmen, what move did you see?
I saw that it starts with queen to c1, just a forcing move.
Yeah, got to look at your forcing moves. Treat it like a puzzle, right? Like a tactic. So you do queen c1, check. Oh. So the problem is he's abandoned the back rank. I showed it to someone, they thought knight d2. It's like, well, they move, you take, whatever. If we wanted to do that and take, we could have taken the bishop already, right? But the thing is, with the queen check first, you can always come in afterwards with the knight. We definitely utilize him soon. And keep in mind also that the queen went here because she was worried about this, right? So that induced it. When you put pressure on your opponent, it induces blunders, right? Happened to me yesterday in the time. Actually, one guy got me. Sonny got me. He had a bunch of pressure on me. He played beautifully. Amazing, like sequences he calculated. But he had pressure on me, so I blundered. So queen c1 check. I think the thing is, like, the fallacy of this was that I forget how, I don't know how you exactly describe it, but basically it's like the fallacy of assuming that things are going to go one way, where like the fallacy of, it's like the false concession. It's like, oh my, like you have it in your mind like, oh, I'm giving him a concession, fine. But then it's the notion of not, like, essentially not looking at enough candidate moves, but almost like reassuring yourself. It's like it's bad, but it's not that bad, right? But then that leads to a short, you never want to lead to a, a short circuiting in your logic. So that's where it short circuits. Say, okay, fine, I'll let him do that. I'm done. But then you don't keep going. You're like, wait, what if he doesn't take my B2 pawn though, right? And that's where the other move's going to come in, knight D2. We don't care about that pawn. If we have to, we'll take it. Even the computer likes that. But when you see a good move, look for a better move, said Lasker, right? So okay, after knight D2, we're forking those two. But we don't care about that fork. What do we care about? We're hitting the queen. She moves away. What's the point of knight D2?
Knight F1.
Mm-hmm. And that looks pretty good, doesn't it? Because you're going to lure the king. Even if the bishop weren't there, he would have to go back because you're covering G3. So that's got to be winning, right? I mean, well, you're going to lure. Then you have to find the right sequence to actually prove it. But it's got to be good, right? Check. Come in here. Yeah, I remember it's a local players, like this master came by. The moment he saw it, he's like, "Oh!" I saw the look on his face. Because when you see this position, because like he just, pattern recognition. He knows my knight's coming. He knows what's happening here. You can't abandon your back rank like that. Okay, now there are two ways to win this position. But the thing is, he's creating an X-ray against my queen. There are two main ways to win this. So again, now at this point, I had like maybe 2 to 3. I think I had 3 minutes. I went down to like a minute something just to make sure. And again, once I made my move, I was back up to like 2 again because they have 30-second increment. But I just want to make sure you clinch this. So let's pause it again here. This is like the main combo. So how do you efficiently achieve a winning position here? No, no questions, like no ifs, ands, or buts. Just you have it decisively. How do you do it? Okay, what do you think?
I think maybe you could play knight F1 and then followed by taking the bishop because it will be like a discovered attack on the king. Like once you move the bishop and then the knight away.
But the thing is, by going queen F4, that's his idea at least, right? To pose a challenge because the queen's facing off at the queen. So he's like, yeah, I know you have a discovery after this, but the thing is, my queen's looking at your queen. Okay, let's calculate from here. So what are you seeing? I think you saw it. So knight F1, check, king G1, then what?
And then you take the bishop with the knight, and it's a discovered check on the king. And then the defender of the queen is removed.
Uh-huh.
So
So
then
they
you could
have to, yeah,
just,
the queen's hanging. So what do they have to do then?
I
Wouldn't they
think,
take your queen?
Right. Just keep going, Carmen. Right. But you're not short circuiting your logic. You keep going, right? He's continuing with the calculation. Keep going. So queen takes C1, then what?
is it a fork?
Yeah, you get the fork with it. So the knight, and that's where, remember, I kind of foreshadowed that with all the knight moves. So if you recall, he wraps all the way around and then it finishes the game. So the thing is, you can also play G5. Yeah, you can do that too. But I just thought, this is clean. No, it's funny actually. I was kind of low on time. I'm like, yeah, I guess I was G5, and then I forgot and I played knight F1 anyway. But knight F1 is the cleaner move. I think I was planning on G5, but anyway, my hand reached out, grabbed the knight because I knew that either way I was winning. But I think also like it was the right way to go in terms of simplicity. So what you do is you hang your queen. It's a pseudo sacrifice. It's a sacrifice. It's a temporary sack. You immediately regain it. So it's kind of fun.
Oh.
So you hang your queen. You see it now, Matt?
Yeah, I kept thinking, why doesn't the king go to H1? But the knight's blocking that.
Yeah. And if he goes
After
to
he takes
H1
the bishop.
immediately, then that's worse. Because if he goes here, he drops everything because you take with double check, and
Right.
then you grab his queen and game over, right? And then it actually says mate. Well, you go for the mate here. Yeah. Anyway, so knight here. So the best move it says is queen E2. And then it's just saying, okay, you have to take with the queen. So, well, then we're going to have this one. Yeah, that's just getting destroyed. And anytime you reach it here, you're going to mate in one. And the cool thing is also like the solidity is really nice for black too. Whenever you have this kind of solidity, you don't have to worry about. So when you drop here, you don't have to worry about like some checks. So not only is the knight's in the way, and once you move the knight, the pawn's in the way. And even if he were to reach, if she comes down here, you have king H7. That's the importance of making a loop, right? But if I didn't have those features, like if I start shoving all my pawns and not shoving my H pawn, then things could go wrong. And also the fact that his bishop's bad. well, let's say his bishop were activated. If he were here, well, then it would, yes, it would at least cover D1. It might make a difference sometimes, right? Oh, and that would make a huge difference because then there would be queen D1, right? To guard. So like every feature matters, right? But just these little preparatory moves help you make the whole thing work. So yeah, it was. So I'll show you the other line as well. But yeah, this is probably the easiest for sure. I think it's the easiest. Check. You're just up a piece. He just resigned. It's like, I'm not going to try. Because you figure, hey, maybe you end up getting a knight and bishop scenario and try to draw. But I think he didn't want to. It was like 11:45 at night. So I guess he figured, okay, I'm good. Yeah, actually, if he were to go here, the best move is just b5. Because the thing is, he's trying to trap. He wants to go c3 now, right? And try to trap it and then bring the king over. But when you go b5, you just take this. King comes over, you go here. So you cover, I may as well make a different color here. So you cover all those squares, and then the king comes over, the pawn pushes. So you're going to win the b pawn easily. I mean, you're going to gang up on it. You have a knight, bishop, and a king ganging up on his pawn. Win the pawn, push this pawn. Or you can obviously wrap around and go after these pawns. You're just going to use the force that, just utilizing your extra force to be able to easily win pawns. That's the point. It's like if you're up a knight, just up a pure knight, and pawns. The thing that's going to win for you is just using your knight to win pawns. Or the knight can usher in. He can usher in the pawn, or the knight could be used to guard pawns. Like, for example, this bishop can also be utilized just to guard these pawns, to guard them just enough to be able to do stuff on the other side, for example. But here, you just completely contain them, so it should be very easy. So here, he resigned. You could even go a6 and b5. You toss the b pawn at him. So anyway, yeah, that was the key. So the moment he went queen f3, it was over. And he said, oh, maybe a king h2. Yeah, of course. I mean, he could have fought on, Then I have a nice position. I have a nice edge. And I could try to, get for this, try to go after G2, try to shove these, go after the but that's going to be, it's only giving me a -1. That's going to be a game. So, he blundered. It made my work a lot easier. But the lesson is, you get these subtle things going on. You build your advantage and then, but you can see obviously this, it's at least slight advantage, probably a major advantage, which would be minus over plus, just because the superior minor piece. He had to do a little bit of a journey, then he's better. Do you guys have any thoughts? Any final thoughts or questions about the game? I mean, and as I mentioned in the email for today, this idea in general of the queen knight combo. So obviously, well, what is the main kind of through line of the game? The main takeaway or something that you can use, and the thing I was able to use, at least two things, but the concepts I was able to utilize in order to get the advantage. What do you guys think? Which is, stuff you can use to secure advantages a lot. What do you guys think?
I think one idea I saw in the end game was that your position was very well defended in the back rank. So like the way you had your pawn structure set up so that they didn't have like any easy way of breaking in is something that I could also take away because I also have like problems with that, like in general,
Mm-hmm.
like figuring out which squares would be beneficial to like have like just like pushing like H3. Sometimes I would make that move just knowing that it's a good move, but not like the reasoning behind it so that you have like an escape square, which
Mm-hmm.
is like kind of important, I guess, like to just
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, totally. And the thing is, I often don't do that, right? I mean, it's interesting because sometimes you just want to attack and you don't want to insert those moves. And sometimes also inserting the move can be weakening. So
Yeah,
technically it is a weakening move. Well, like when he goes here, you can target H3 or you can do a bayonet like G5, G4. But usually it's it cost benefit analysis, usually it's worth it. But it does cost you time also. You just have to know, like, if there's nothing else really big going on, you could do it. He inserted the move, I inserted the move. Very common in London. Just insert the move, could tuck the bishop back. I actually did it more so I could tuck my queen back because I didn't want it to go queen G3. I wanted to be uncompromising because I'm like, look, I have like this battery, like my, laser beams aiming at C2. So I want to preserve the queen. But yeah, anyway, so sometimes what you'll do is like you realize, okay, I have enough back rank defense. I don't need it right now. Or my bishop can come back, or like, well, that's the nice thing about fianchetto. When you fianchetto, you automatically create a luft. However, sometimes the bishop comes in this way. There's like the rook check, bishop goes back,
yeah.
the bishop goes back, and they have that. But fianchetto is like a quasi luft for the most part. You will see GMs a lot of times as they approach the endgame, just doing like little improving moves like G6, king up, things like that. But also keep in mind if you are gonna go off the back rank, you should really do it. But that's the thing, like you may want to go off the back rank later, and you'll be like, oh, I wish I would have done it. So yeah, if you have time to do it, then do it. Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes at my level, especially, like there's always room for these types of moves, given that the opponent doesn't really have like a structured plan. So that
Mhm.
sometimes, like when the opponent throws in a move such as like um moving their pawn to h6, I could also consider these moves as well, just because like it won't really be
Yeah.
that detrimental to my position, I guess.
Yeah, and not only h6, but as you're saying, I think you were just saying in general, like the safety of the king position. So it was the mix of things, right? There's like the fact that he doesn't have any breakthroughs. So you've secured everything here. There are no breakthroughs to the king. The fact that his bishop is shut down. The fact that the bishop on f5 covers that diagonal. So similar to his, but his bishop was just really unhappy. But that means that this is possible. So funny enough, he did have this, but it was just like the one way in which that doesn't work because the knight gets behind and hits h2. That was the only way. Well, the only other way is if you have like a battery of queen and rook and you mate it this way. So very rarely, usually that's pretty good there to have that. Yeah, but in general, like sometimes I'll sack the exchange just to get that. All right, I guess these things. I'll stop now. Yeah, good job, guys. Good analysis.
Daddy.
Yeah.